Welcome back. The race for a North Carolina Supreme Court seat from November is still uncertified, the only statewide race in our country still in that category. After several recounts, Democratic Associate Justice Allison holds a 734 vote lead over Republican State Court of Appeals Judge Jefferson Griffin. But Griffin claims in a lawsuit that some 65,000 ballots were cast not in accordance with state law or the Constitution. Now, a panel from the state's intermediate level appeals court heard arguments about all of that today. North Carolina Supreme Court Associate Justice Allison joins me now. Justice, it's good to have you with us. We'll get to the legal dispute in a second and the granular nature therein, but I want to ask you, I've read lots of stories about this, and I don't quite understand the remedy. Do lawyers for Jefferson Griffin want all 65,000 votes thrown out? And if they're thrown out, do you rerun the election, or how do you decide who wins? I'm really confused about that.
First, thank you for having me. Counsel for my opponent was asked that very question this morning in oral arguments. And to be clear, they want to toss over 65,000 ballots here in North Carolina. They don't want a new election. They just want to toss 65,000 ballots. And then they believe, because these ballots have been targeted to Democratic counties based on absentee and early voting, they believe that he'll prevail after that. And it doesn't make sense. It shouldn't make sense. And you're not alone in your confusion.
So as I read through the legal arguments, Jefferson Griffin says that the vast majority of these disputed ballots did not have a Social Security or driver's license number attached to the voter registration database. He also challenges military and overseas ballots who didn't provide a photo ID, and what he calls those who never lived in North Carolina, children of people born in North Carolina who live overseas. Now, as I understand it, the Elections Board has said all of these things might have been innocent or in accordance with state law, and have already essentially tried to certify this election.
All of these voters cast ballots in compliance with state law. That is crystal clear. Some of my opponents and folks in a certain political party might wish the law was different, but with respect to those voters with allegedly incomplete registrations, the Republican National Committee went to federal court before the election to challenge that, and they lost. So these were the rules in place for the November election. My parents are among the 60,000 people with allegedly incomplete registrations. I promise you my parents are legitimate voters who provided all the information that was requested of them. My father's a 30-year military veteran who registered to vote with his military ID and showed it when he went to vote for me this November. There are also 5,500 military and overseas voters that my opponent has challenged only in 4 Democratic-leaning counties. North Carolina has 100 counties. The people who raised their hands to serve our country in great peril do not deserve to be at the top of the list of people who lose the right to vote because a candidate is disappointed. So these voters did nothing wrong. The NCGOP chair conceded yesterday these voters have done nothing wrong. It's my job as a constitutional officer to enforce and defend our state and federal constitutions no matter what, and I will not give an inch in this fight.
An attorney for Jefferson Griffin said, at bottom, this case is about whether the election was conducted in accordance with the will of the people. According to the state board, it can conduct an election how it wants. It doesn't matter if the board adopts rules that are inconsistent with state statutes or the state constitution. You just mentioned you're a constitutional officer of the state of North Carolina. How do you respond to that level of argument?
The state law is clear that the children of folks, military members serving abroad who grow up overseas, who might be the children of missionaries on the field, if they turn 18 while they live over there, they are allowed to vote. It is crystal clear. It was also crystal clear that people casting what's called the UACAVA ballot, so military voters, were told explicitly that they did not have to provide a copy of their ID. That's for good reason under federal law, because if you're a submariner, you can imagine you might not have easy access to a copy machine, and the UACAVA portal doesn't even allow you to send it that way. So it's these voters, including my parents, followed every single rule. There are 68,000 people. These are not numbers. This is not correcting a vote count. These are real people who participated in the political process. These are military voters and their families who are going through challenging times, and we should have their back. I'm a sitting judge. There are times when I have to make decisions that I might not personally like. That's my job because I follow the law and apply it neutrally. If we aren't willing to apply the law as written and give voters an assurance that when they come out of the ballot box, if they followed all the rules, they will have confidence that their votes count. This is a critical issue for democracy all across the country.
You just mentioned the critical issue part. What do you think more broadly is at stake with this ongoing legal dispute?
I think this is a continuation of what we've seen in 2020 and 2022, which is making political the way we conduct an election, particularly after the election. If people in power or candidates don't like who the voters choose, rather than conceding graciously, having a peaceful transfer of power, we're seeing a very dangerous trend to, well, let's just fight. If we don't like the election outcome, we'll just argue who won. Now, I'll note Donald Trump won North Carolina. Mine is the only election in which 68,000 voters are at risk of having their ballots tossed. And my opponent hasn't pointed to one example of an illegitimate voter. In fact, these are all eligible voters who cast legal ballots. And that is a rule of law, a foundation of our democracy that needs to be respected across the country. I worry if what my opponent seeks here in North Carolina happens, it's like dropping a match in a very dry forest, and the wildfire will spread rapidly, and we have to guard against that.
North Carolina Supreme Court Associate Justice Allison Riggs, thank you.
Thank you.